We really did want to bring you here today on Friday to City Hall to give you some factual information about the governing style of Mark Boughton. And his style really affects people's pocketbooks in a particular way. As a Republican mayor, he certainly doesn't follow the Republican platform of lower taxes and smaller government. He talks the talk, but he comes to the table and he fills his plate with taxpayers' money and even comes back for seconds. Since Mark Boughton took office in 2001, the city of Danbury's budget has increased by a whopping 55%. We're talking about a budget that went from $139 million in 2001 to $216 million in 2011. So here we are in Danbury. We have higher taxes, we have more debt, we have unnecessary spending, and all with less services. And I want to begin with taxes. Property taxes have shifted dramatically during Mark's administration. When he took office in 2001, residential property taxes represented just about 52.4% of our grand list. Right now, residential property represents 59.7% of the grand list. Almost 60% of our grand list, our tax base, comes from residential property. Now, I think you all know that local property taxes are blind to a person's health or income or age or ability to pay. In addition, residential taxpayers don't derive any kind of commercial benefit from having a home. It's just a place where they live. Yet the city of Danbury gives tax breaks to private developers like BRT for commercial ventures like Brookview Commons on Crosby Street, and then requires people who are unemployed or on a fixed income to pay more of the tax burden, and that is not fair. BRT has a very nice 7-year tax deferral. Their taxes on Brookside Commons is $12 grand a year. It should be $145,000. If you add that up for 7 years, that's $931,000 in savings for BRT. That's $931,000 in taxes that's not paid that we could use to improve schools, build senior housing, or put into economic development that really creates jobs. And it's also $931,000 that is shifted onto residential taxpayers. I support tax breaks. I'm all for good ones. I want tax breaks that go to low-income residents, that go to seniors, that go to veterans, and people on fixed incomes, but not to private developers. Then we need to talk a little bit about the borrowing. In the past, Danbury has bonded much more judiciously. In fact, we used to only borrow when another project was paid off and those bonds were retired. In 2003, the city's per capita debt was only $668 for every man, woman, and child. Today, that debt is $1,759, and now $1,759, and now we have 80,000 residents. You know, we've had a growth of 20,000. Each one of them has that per capita debt. And our borrowing for both schools and for public improvements will eat up $15 million in the city's current budget. We need to be more prudent about debt, and I will seek voters' consent, their opinion on capital improvements as we used to do in the past. I think that's very important. And I'll make sure that voters have the information that they need in order to decide whether or not these public improvements are worth increasing public debt. The one thing I want to point out in particular is that in June of 2008, Mayor Boughton demonstrated absolutely blatant disregard for our bonded indebtedness. It was at the June City Council meeting that year where he had the council approve 5 separate $500,000 bond authorizations. It violated both the letter and the spirit of our city charter, which normally requires that we put any spending over $500,000 before voters in terms of a referendum. But in June of 2008, the Corporation Council, the city's lawyer, decided that the charter could be interpreted to mean that you could allow multiple borrowings of $500,000 in a budget cycle as long as not a single appropriation exceeded that amount. So on June 3rd in 2008, the City Council approved $2.5 million in bonding without bringing it before voters, without voters' knowledge, and without voters' consent. Even though the city was considering at that time a charter change that would eventually raise the amount of debt that we could incur without a referendum, that charter provision was not approved until the mayoral election in November of 2009. So what we see is a manipulation of the rules, skirting the system, and I think we can expect more from our elected officials than that, to do it before they actually had approval. Now on to unnecessary spending. Some examples of that would be the $450,000 that we paid to plaintiffs in the Danbury firefighter suit, along with $180,000 in attorney's fees, the $400,000 settlement with the plaintiffs in the Danbury 11 case. We don't know about attorney's fees there. And a settlement with the former personnel director in 2004. And I believe that these tax dollars need to be spent to improve services for Danbury residents, not for legal settlements that result from the actions of city officials. So here we have higher taxes, fewer services, more debt, unnecessary spending, and that's the Boughton record so far. I say 10 years is enough. There's one more point I want to make about the mayor's record. This summer, all summer long, the Danbury Public Library was closed at 2 o'clock on Saturday and didn't open at all on Sunday. And this summer was the hottest, wettest summer we have ever had, the worst economy we've ever had, and kids at home from school. What a poor choice for saving money to have the library have reduced hours. And finally, we come to this door, and I think all of you saw many people coming, trying to get in. It's Friday. Every Friday, City Hall is closed, and we don't have access for people who need the services from city government. But there's one good thing about Friday. It gives the mayor a 3-day window to campaign for his next political opportunity, because he does have one foot out the door.